marriage was a short but unusual affair. It lasted until just after the honeymoon. Standing at the altar, Dan feels hot and cold palpitations under his suit. He thought he'd never marry or have a family. This thought had left him with the vague feeling that he'd failed Charles Darwin, or perhaps the universe itself. As he looks out at the congregation and his future family-in-law, he finds himself in divided opinion about that even now. The in-laws are the usual bunch of strange traditions, habits and opinions that composes the foreigners you'd expect from any family you weren't related to yet. But Janine, walking up the aisle, mesmerises him as a sunbeam breaks upon her, having pierced the clouds and stained glass and the dust like a spotlight. Reliving the dream for a moment, Dan thinks, she appeared to me just like a sunburst too. She had just happened to me as I was pursuing my dreams into a darkening future. It feels right, even though I find her utterly desirable, and even though none of our friends match. His friends are mostly the species of fringe dweller given to psychedelic creativity or crusty flamboyance, or geekish genii of the more impractical academic fields. Her friends are mostly young professionals and very rich, many of them happily beating Janine in the baby race, and none of them needing to say anything about the nature of their sport to each other, either. It's a race I'm on the blocks and just about to hear the starting pistol for too, I think, Dan muses wryly. The baby pistols. The Sex Pistols as babies. I wouldn't be surprised if they're the band at the reception. I wonder who booked them. Dan smiles under fine sweat fixedly at his bride-to-be as she steps up next to him and thinks, it's typical that it's taken me until now to see how different Janine is from me mentally. We speak the same words when we say I love you. He's still smiling at her. And also when we'll say I will. But we have completely different associations with them, completely different ideas of what these phrases actually mean. And it's fairly fundamental. But we seem to be cooperating well so far. His eyes stray from Janine's slightly greeny-blue irises to the ranking crowds of witnesses. Then he refocuses through her veil, expecting the radiance of happiness in her own smile sustained. Yet for just a moment she looks like somebody he's never met, and perhaps would never understand. Just for a moment. Then once again, when she smiles, she looks familiar, ravishing and soon to be his forever. The fire of desire ignites the instant her face flickers back from strange shadows into its golden soft familiarity, and the icicles melt from his own frozen grin. Strangely, Dan's experience of Janine's unfamiliarity flickers in his mind again when he's kissing her after the vows. This time the unfamiliarity coming to him through touch and taste too. Her lips are not only salty but slightly bitter. I'm glad I had time to brush my teeth after breakfast, he catches himself reflecting. And as he grasps her arms, her skin feels momentarily rubbery, not alive, or at least not belonging to the living, breathing person he remembers. Wonder how Janine really feels, he thinks as they walk back down the aisle, smiling widely at each other and the congregation. Dan's brushing his teeth again in the honeymoon suite. It's vital to make a good impression in key moments of life, he ponders. The class-based brawls between families and friends at the reception have been peacefully negotiated, and the parties have been seen off bearing memorable grudges, happily to be cultivated at future get-togethers, like vintage vinegar. Dan futilely tries to estimate how much drink was consumed. Janine is sipping champagne in bed, waving the glass at him slightly. She's a happy drunk, just as well, probably. I think that went well, all things considered. She slightly slurs blissfully. There's only one black eye. Dennis has private medical insurance anyway. I'll watch your Aunt Doris more closely from now on, Dan replies through a sardonic gleam of minty fresh teeth. I still don't know how her scooter ended up in the swimming pool, Janine confesses. And with you on it, too, Dan responds with happy mock scorn. I'm lucky it wasn't an electric scooter. And so am I, he replies, with the recognition of the horrific smarts as he bends down to kiss her, first on the forehead and then on the lips. There's another briefest moment of alien sensation against his tongue again, even though she'd just brushed her teeth too. It must be that enhanced toothpaste she uses, Dan deduces, coming round to the tatters of his day's wits. Think romantic, he instructs himself frantically as she wraps her arm around his head and pulls him down onto the bed. This is romantic, he reflects. We haven't finished even undressing yet. Through the champagne haze and the touch of her lips, her skin on his, he decides to try and concentrate on what he's doing, on what they're doing, on what Janine's doing. So he looks into her eyes as they embrace. Janine blinks. When she opens her eyes, the pupils have become vertical slits like cat's eyes. The irises have turned soft gold. Dan pushes himself off the bed in animal instinctive repulsion. What? Janine, what? He articulates, as Janine quickly withdraws the forked tip of a two-lizard-like tongue between her glistening ruby lips. What? She asks in innocent wooziness, frowning coquettishly, albeit not focusing on him. What? She asks again, as he backs away still further from the bed, shaking his head in horror. But apparently he's determined to be serious. She can tell by that cute, serious look he's set on his face. So she puts on her most baby-faced pout, and in the clumsiness of her slight inebriation, she pulls it off. Dan stops backing away and simply says, sternly, I think there's something you're not telling me. So I'm an alien shapeshifter, Janine says and shrugs. Surprise! What? Dan repeats, almost shouting, forcing himself to not smile. But then he does add, with a smile, I can't say I'm entirely surprised. Except I was expecting it to be in a more metaphorical sense. The sarcasm is too abstract for Janine to notice in her present state, apparently. She hiccups invisible bubbles and pouts again. Dan, I'm still the person you love. Nothing's changed. You what? It changes everything, Dan exclaims incredulously. Like what? Like, oh come on Janine, you're an alien. Although a part of his brain wants him to tell her how gorgeous she looks in her negligee, a little upset. You're a different species from me. I had heard that women were from Venus, but I didn't take it literally. I mean, Venus is a sulphurous, heavy metal raining, lead melting, desolate, overheated hellhole. What would that make you? In fact, what would it make our marriage? Apart from a really bad start to it, I mean. He's trying hard not to express a mood that he still doesn't know whether he'll regret in the morning. Dan, I know I'm not human, and now you know my big secret too. But so what? At the moment I'm human, at least down to the cellular level. Most of me, most of the time. Things on the blink again. Bear with me, darling. I still love you. Her smile is noticeably alien, now he thinks about it. We won't be able to have children. Do you even have DNA? He asks, a little exasperated. You never brought the subject of children up before, and I wasn't about to ask a leading question. But for your peace of mind, with a little pill and some advanced medical intervention, I can turn my sex chromosomes human so we can have a baby, if you like. I think I'd like that. A human baby, how exotic. It's very romantic, she slurs seductively. I bet Janine Sanderson isn't even your real name. You're right about that. I'm married, remember? She waves the shiny, newly chiselled old rock on her finger at him and elaborates. My real name is now Janine Crisp. I have a piece of paper to prove it, also. But I'd prefer to drink champagne over trying to find it right now, which she does and doesn't. Besides, she adds demurely, you wouldn't be able to pronounce my original name, the name that I've renounced for your sake, darling. You don't have the vocal equipment to say it, nor the ears to hear it, actually, or the brain's wiring to encode it into your consciousness, even if you could, for that matter. But in case you're wondering, it's... and for a few seconds Janine breathes out noise like a jet passing low enough overhead to rattle the cutlery on a table. The noise stops abruptly with a pop. Dan, still struggling to think, grasps hold of the obvious accusation. "You fundamentally lied to me, Janine. How can I ever trust you again?" Looking sincerely hurt now, Janine replied, "It's not as if I did lie to you, Dan, darling. I can't recall you ever asking me if I wasn't human. But then, I can't recall very much right now, and that's how I like it." Somehow the question whether you are an alien never came up, Dan adds, trying hard to be sarcastic, although all he can really manage in that mode is to add, "Came close though, sometimes." "You know I wouldn't lie to you, Dan. I love you," Janine claims. But, Dan begins. "Don't be so melodramatic. Come back to bed," she says, giggling. He shakes his head in disbelief, or perhaps trying to shake up a response to the situation, as Janine lets the strap of her top slip off her shoulder. She does look particularly gorgeous tonight, though, Dan thinks, with a lingering slight unease, and she pulls him towards her by his shirt, unbuttoning it with fervour while kissing him around the mouth, fortunately with a tangibly human tongue. Dan's desires make his conscience feel like it's being torn apart by whipped horses, so he thinks, "What the hell, we'll talk about it in the morning." He pushes Janine down and starts kissing her lips, then cheek, intensely. The fragrance of her skin is making him greedy for the connection. Somewhere he dully realizes that the smell is artificial, but it's evidently being painstakingly concocted to fire up his desire, and his mind's been disinhibited by the champagne, so he might as well appreciate it. As he kisses the bottom of Janine's neck at her shoulder, her skin there starts to warm and redden, but the red doesn't stop deepening. Dan pushes himself to the side just in time to see Janine burst into flames. He jumps off the bed like a backwards puma, thinking, "I didn't know I was that hot a lover," as the fire covering Janine settles from intense yellow-fringed white to gentle light watercoloured blue, tipped with blood red. Curiously, it doesn't ignite the sheets. As the blue-red tipped flames dance around her body, Janine lies still, almost serene on the pyre of their wedding bed, eyes closed. Is she dead? "That's all I need," Dan says out loud. "What'll I tell the police? What am I going to tell the in-laws? I hope this isn't going to start an interstellar war." He's in shock on shock. Then Janine opens her eyes. "Don't worry," she says, beaming with love. "It's a good sign. It means you are giving me intense pleasure. Come back to bed and carry on kissing me. You won't feel the flames. They're a purely visual projection of my sensations." She opens her blue and red flaming embrace to him, and he rejoins her in the bed. He'll worry about the general situation later, he decides. True to her word, he doesn't feel the flames of her desire envelop him as he kisses her again. He only notices the white flames of his own mind, the heat of her, and the ultraviolet blaze of her lips and tongue.